Wait, what happens when the same people who mocked you are forced to clap for you? What happens when the child they called shame stands before them, not crying, not begging, but shining? The village gathered that day, not for gossip, not for mockery, but for something they never expected. The girl they pushed aside was about to stand in the center of the square, and before the sun went down, their whispers would turn into applause. Stay with me, because this is the moment everything begins to change. By morning, the village was no longer the same. Where laughter once mocked, praise now echoed. Men who had shaken their heads began to nod proudly. Women who had whispered began to boast. Is she not from our village? Yes, yes. We always knew she was special. But heaven was watching. And Zora remembered. Cars arrived 2 weeks later. Big cars. Shiny cars that carried dust differently. Reporters stepped out with cameras. Sponsors followed. The scholarship papers were real. Full education sponsorship. Music training. A chance to travel abroad. For the first time, the village square was decorated not for a wedding or burial, but for celebration. They organized a small ceremony. The same elders who once avoided her now called her forward. One elder cleared his throat. We are proud of you, our daughter. Our daughter. The words sounded strange. Her grandmother wept openly. This time, not from shame. From something close to regret. Even Amora, her mother, stood at the back of the crowd. She had not known how to approach her child since the night of that competition. Shame had built a wall between them for 16 years. But now the wall had cracks. When Zora stepped forward to speak, the microphone felt lighter than before. She looked at the crowd. The same faces. The same houses. The same red earth. Only their voices had changed. Thank you, she began. Her tone was calm. Gentle. But I did not win alone. The crowd listened carefully. I won because every insult taught me strength. Silence. Every rejection built my courage. A few heads lowered. And every closed door forced me to find my own key. The wind moved softly through the palm trees. Zara turned slightly. Her eyes met her mother's. For a moment, time stood still. Amora's eyes were full of tears, not of embarrassment, but of realization. After the ceremony, while people celebrated and music played, Amora walked slowly toward her daughter. Her steps were uncertain. Her hands trembled. Zara, she whispered. The name felt heavy and holy on her tongue. I am sorry. 3 words. 16 years late. But powerful. Zara looked at her mother. She saw not the woman who abandoned her, but a broken woman who had been afraid. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she stepped forward and hugged her. The crowd gasped softly. In that embrace, something healed. Not completely, but enough to begin again. Soon, Zara would leave for Lagos. Then beyond Nigeria. But before she left, she stood alone once more on her favorite hill. She sang into the evening sky. This time, the wind did not carry pain. It carried promise. The rejected seed had broken the soil. And now, it was growing tall. Very tall. Lagos was louder than her village. The air buzzed with traffic, ambition, and restless dreams. Tall buildings stretched toward the sky as if competing with one another. For the first time, Zara felt small again. But this time, it was not shame that made her small. It was possibility. Her scholarship covered everything: music training, school fees, accommodation. She moved into a modest hostel with other gifted youths from different parts of Nigeria. Some were dancers. Some were actors. Some were musicians. Unlike the village, no one asked about her past. They asked about her talent. And Zora bloomed. She trained harder than anyone. While others rested, she practiced. While others partied, she studied. Because she knew something many of them did not know, what it meant to have nothing. Her voice matured. It grew richer, deeper, stronger. Soon, opportunities expanded beyond music. One of the judges from the competition introduced her to an educational foundation. They noticed her sharp mind. "Have you ever considered studying abroad?" they asked. Zara remembered standing outside classroom windows. She remembered being sent home for unpaid fees. "Yes," she answered quietly. "I have." Another scholarship came. This time, overseas. When she boarded the airplane for the first time, her hands pressed against the window. As the plane lifted above Nigerian soil, tears filled her eyes. The red earth became smaller and smaller beneath the clouds. But she carried it in her heart. Abroad, life was not easy. The weather was cold. The accent was different. People mispronounced her name. But Zara had survived worse than loneliness. She studied music first. Then education. Then community development. Her professors noticed her brilliance. Her classmates respected her discipline. Years passed like turning pages in a book written by grace. Master's degree. Another master's. Then she pursued a PhD. A girl once mocked as product of shame was now writing academic papers that professors quoted. She spoke at conferences. She sang at global events. She told her story, not with bitterness, but with strength. And each time she spoke, audiences rose to their feet. News of her achievements traveled back home. The village that once rejected her now claimed her proudly. Children began saying, "I want to be like Zora." Schools invited her picture onto their walls. But Zora did not forget. She sent money home quietly. She paid school fees for struggling children. She supported widows. No noise. No announcement. Just impact. Because greatness, she learned, is not only about rising. It is about lifting others. And as her name spread beyond Nigeria, something beautiful was happening. The child once unwanted was becoming a symbol. Not of shame, but of excellence. Yet one final chapter awaited her. A chapter that would complete the circle. Many years later, the road that led into the village was no longer rough and forgotten. It had been graded. Painted signboards now stood at the entrance. And on one bright afternoon, a convoy of cars drove slowly across the red earth. Children ran behind, shouting excitedly. "She is coming. She is coming." Zara had returned. Not as the mock child. Not as the struggling girl outside classroom windows. But as Dr. Zara Amora. PhD holder. Award-winning singer. International speaker. The village square was decorated once again. This time, with banners that carried her face. Elders sat proudly in the front row. Women dressed in colorful wrappers sang welcome songs. The same place that once echoed with insults now vibrated with praise. When Zara stepped out of the car, silence fell for a moment. She looked around slowly. The mango tree where children once refused to play with her still stood. The old classroom block still leaned slightly to one side. Memories rushed back. But this time, they did not hurt. They strengthened her. The village head stood and raised his staff. "Today," he announced, "we honor our daughter, who has brought glory to this land." Applause filled the air. But Zora did not come only for celebration. She came with plans. First, she announced a scholarship foundation for village children, especially girls who had no support. Gasps of surprise. Then she unveiled another gift. A fully built community learning center. Modern classrooms. A small music studio. A library filled with books. Tears flowed freely. But one moment remained. Her mother stood quietly at the side. Time had placed gentle lines on her face. Regret had softened her eyes. When the ceremony ended, Amara walked forward slowly and knelt before her daughter. "My child," she said, voice shaking, "forgive me for abandoning you." The crowd watched in breathless silence. Zara bent quickly and lifted her mother up. "No, Mama," she said softly. "We rise together." She had already bought her mother a beautiful house in town. Not as payment. Not as revenge. But as love. Because bitterness builds prisons. Forgiveness builds freedom. That evening, as drums played and dancers celebrated, the elder who once doubted her whispered to another man. "Indeed, the stone the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone." And this time, nobody argued. The rejected seed had become a mighty tree. But beyond the applause, beyond the praise, Zara knew something deeper. Her greatest victory was not fame. Not degrees. Not awards. It was proof. Proof that destiny does not ask where you began. It asks whether you will rise. And Zara had risen. Years passed, but Zara's light did not grow dim. It grew brighter. Her songs crossed oceans. Her speeches touched hearts. Her foundation expanded beyond the village, beyond the state, beyond Nigeria. International organizations invited her to speak. Universities awarded her honors. Young girls wrote letters saying, "Because of you, I did not give up." But the greatest miracle was not in the awards. It was in the transformation. The same village that once called her seed of shame now called her our pride. The same relatives who mocked her now told their children, "Be strong like Zara." And every time she visited, she would walk quietly to the hill where she once sang alone. The wind still danced in the tall grass. The sky still stretched wide and patient. She would close her eyes and remember. The hunger. The insults. The loneliness. Then she would smile. Because pain had not destroyed her. It had shaped her. One evening, during a Global Excellence Award ceremony in Abuja, her name was announced once again. Dr. Zara Amara, symbol of resilience and national pride. The hall rose to its feet. As she walked toward the stage, cameras flashing like lightning, she remembered the kerosene lamp. She remembered standing outside classroom windows. She remembered her grandmother's backyard. When she reached the microphone, the applause slowly faded. She looked across the hall. "I was not supposed to be here," she began gently. "They said my life ended before it began." Silence wrapped around the audience. "But rejection is not a prophecy." She paused. "Pain is not a prison. And your beginning does not decide your ending." Tears filled many eyes. Even her mother, seated in the front row, wept freely, not from shame, but from gratitude. Zara continued. "I stand here today for every child who was told they were nothing." Her voice grew stronger. "You are not nothing. You are not your circumstances. You are not the names they call you." Thunderous applause interrupted her. And in that moment, it was clear. The girl once unwanted had become a global voice of hope. The child once laughed at had become a banner of excellence. The stone the builders rejected had truly become the chief cornerstone. And somewhere in the quiet of heaven, destiny smiled. Because in a small Nigerian village where red dust once carried cruel whispers, a story had been rewritten. Not by anger. Not by revenge. But by courage. And so, if you ever pass through that village and hear the wind move gently through the palm trees, listen closely. You might hear it whisper one name. Zara. The girl who refused to remain rejected. The girl who rose and never came down.
Thanks for watching this folktale till the end. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and leave a comment to tell us what lesson touched your heart the most. Don't forget to subscribe and press the notification bell so you never miss another African folktale.